March is Social Work Month, and we are taking a moment to highlight the dynamic profession that is social work. Social work is involved in so much. We provide support to vulnerable populations. We improve mental health in various capacities. We advocate for social justice. We're really committed to promoting equity and fairness in society. I'm not sure that people always see us in that way, but I feel like that was really the core of social work and what we're really built on. Like, we advocate for change on multiple levels, be that changing policy and programs, or working with individuals and strengthening communities. Social workers support families, schools, organizations. Our range is just so vast. And today we get to explore that a little more closely. My name is Amanda Fludd. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, speaker, coach, professor, entrepreneur, and creator of this audacious project, interviewing a social worker a day for 30 days. And today I am joined by my colleague and sister friend, Amira Martin, who's doing some amazing things out on these streets. Hey, Amira.
Hey, Amanda.
Oh, my goodness. So glad to have you.
I appreciate it.
Pleasure's mine. So I want to get right in there. So what does breaking barriers mean to you?
For me, breaking barriers really means just reaching the places that we once could not have, right? So I think that, there's something to be said for that socially. There's something to be said for that individually. There's something to be said for that as women of color, as women. There's so much that can be said about breaking barriers. But I think the real meaning for me is just reaching places that you could not have before.
And that's powerful, because there's so many limits for us in all those places that you talked about, right? As women, even within our own profession, I think there's still a lot of limits and misperceptions around the field and what we're capable of, and for disadvantaged populations. So it's so important to think about that. In terms of this work, what motivated you to even become a social worker, and how did you get started in the field?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things were really the heavy influences in my life, right? One was that I grew up in, an economically disadvantaged home and family, and dealt with my own family members dealing with their own stressors. And my dad, I talk about this openly, my dad was addicted to crack cocaine, and my dad had severe mental illness, and my mom had to, go out and struggle to build a life for us, and she should go do that on her own. So seeing that, and then being part of the community I'm from, just meant a lot to me, and it really taught me about equality. It taught me that I could see what we weren't able to get in our community. I don't necessarily mean in my home, because my mom did do a phenomenal job with growing financially and educationally for herself, and eventually we ended up in a really good place. But just seeing the disadvantage, seeing the struggle, seeing all of the things that happened made me want to do work that had a lot of meaning, that would make a difference in the world. And so that's how I came into the field.
I love that. So really influenced by your like personal story, but then just like the collective community and seeing
that. Absolutely. Each of those, when I think about the community I grew up in, I still have friends there and family, and I'm still very connected to the community I grew up in. And always will have a lot of love, for my community, and the larger social work community, the Black community, and the community in the Bronx that I grew up in. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, has like your view of the disadvantage changed for you? Because I think a lot of our work does kind of start on this like community level and like our personal stories too. I'm just curious if it's changed in terms of like how we can affect change and the levels we can affect change.
Absolutely. So for me, when I think of like, where I was in that individual, that micro level, right? Like, here I wanted to do a good job and make a difference in the world as me, one person who was going to become a social worker.
Yeah.
And once I got into the field and I was able to move up and work in administration and do lots of different things, I saw, wow, like I'm really able to do this stuff pretty well. And then it was like time for me to really dive into my passion, which was working with our community, with working with Black and Brown folk and providing mental health care, again, individually. And then it was like, okay, add a couple practitioners to my practice, make a little more of a difference. And it was like, wait a second, I know what I went through to try to get here, to try to get to a place where I could be a private practice therapist. And I want to help as many Black and Brown therapists as possible to get there as well. And that's how I ended up creating Amira for her and Amira for him, under Amira, the Black and Brown Healing Space, which is really, 50 Black and Brown therapists providing services all over New York State. And we're really able to make a difference. And not only are they there for the community, but part of the work that we do is also to get them to the place where they need to have their independent licensure and can start their own private practices. And that's also going to be making an impact, so that's definitely been a big change, right? Like me thinking about like helping, the 12 or 15 or 30 individuals on my caseload to like, well, how can I multiply and magnify that to have a really strong impact in my community at large,
Amazing. And it also speaks to us, I even just like culturally, and this may be true for other cultures, but this idea of like bringing the community along and giving back to the community and creating something that's really sustainable, right? So it's like, why help the one or two when I can do this in a way that can help more, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so needed when we think about the statistics out there where there really aren't a lot of Black and Brown providers, and with the pandemic that's allegedly gone. But
there are still thousands of new cases every day.
Right, we're still struggling.
Amanda, like the actual percentage is 4%. 4% of private practice mental health providers in the US, of mental health practitioners in the US are Black, and that's a huge problem. I mean, we're at least 13% of the population. And then when you add the fact that we're like concentrated in really particular places, it's just so little access for so many people.
Right. That's like the needle in the haystack, right? So it just speaks to the importance of what we do and the importance of how we can think bigger to help address these problems. Something you said struck me, and in the sense of helping, right? Like, does our helping in this field match up to what we're paid in this field?
I'd say no. I'd say no, not at all, I think that the impact that we have is tremendous. But our pay is modest, right? Like teachers complain about their salaries, and sometimes we look at teachers' salaries and we're like wishful that was us, So I really don't think it at all is where it needs to be. And I think that that's something that, I hope can change at some point.
Yeah. I think we've got to start looking at the value of like helping professions and, professions that really serve at this capacity, because everyone wants to feel good emotionally. We want our communities to be healthy. We want them to be safe, but we're not thinking about what goes into that. Because here we are thinking about how to make it happen. But a lot of times it's pulling all these resources, it's putting in our time, but it really doesn't quite align with the value that society puts on helping professions.
I have to agree with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're still in that underpaid place. Like we've definitely gotten creative in what we do. And I think we're good at figuring it out to make it work for us. But, we shouldn't have to work so hard.
Right.
Our own economic stability, because we already work hard for our community.
Absolutely. I have to fully agree with you on that.
Yeah. So lastly, because you've given us a lot already, we've heard how you're even breaking barriers in what you're doing with Amira for her and Amira for him, and creating a opportunity and a path for other clinicians to grow and access, which is just phenomenal. So I will leave you with, finish the sentence. I wish people understood social workers ...
Are educated, trained, clinically astute, and able to help in a professional manner.
Yes, and yes.
We're not just like a friend. It's not like you might as well just pay a friend to talk to them, or we're not baby snatchers. We're like are actually trained and very thoughtful, and it's a whole curriculum and a plan with how we get into this role, you know.
Mm-hmm. And a lot is actually required of us, right? Especially when you go down the, clinical road, like we actually have to spend more hours on supervised hours and working directly with people. And then if you go on to, pursuing specializations, and, I don't think people recognize that as well, and it goes back
Absolutely.
to the value and the economic value of what we do. Like that has to come up a little bit to match the bar.
And two exams. I mean,
yes.
with super high failure rates. So
right.
When we get to this position, it's for a reason,
Yes. So we invest a lot to be here. And we've got to just look at that and what it means for the profession. And are we giving people, what they're putting in to be here? I'm sure everyone has seen how much we've grown as a profession across the years, but I hope in conversations like this, we can really see like, oh, wow, it takes a lot to be a social worker. It takes a lot to be a clinical social worker. It takes a lot to be, an advocate. And are we matching that for them?
Absolutely. I mean, that's terrific. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Amira, for all that you're doing for the profession. Thank you for being an agent of change and creating this path, for other professionals. If you didn't know what was possible for social work, I think Amira just dropped some bombs for you on what it could look like. I heard speaking, I heard growing your practice. Anything else that we're missing that you do?
Train other therapists who are not in my practice on developing their own private practices.
Listen, she's here. And she's here to see this thing grow and to continue to help us move forward collectively. So on behalf of everyone, we thank you for what you're doing.
You're so welcome. Absolutely welcome. Thank you, Amanda.
Oh, such a pleasure. And to everyone listening, if you love this, like it, share, and, continue to help be an advocate and a voice for social work. Help us raise the vibration of this work and what we do. To everyone in the profession, we see you and we thank you for what you do. Happy Social Work Month.
Thank you.